Okay, so here we are back at our Linux machine. I'm going to make sure that I boot up MSF console or metaspolite first. This should take a moment to load. What we'll also then do is launch another terminal, and in this one we'll actually navigate the structure using standard cd commands. So first off, I'm going to choose cd, opt, and metaspolite, and then we'll use the ls command to list out what exists in that structure. So when we did the base install, this is where the components went into. You'll see that we have various components. We have reset password, we have reconfigure scripts, we have create users. These are all commands that we can run. They're all shell commands. What we're going to do though is focus on going into the apps directory. And if I just list in here, you'll see we have a pro directory. And if I then list, you'll see that it's now broken even further. So in here, you can see that we have a data folder, we have modules, we have scripts, we have reports and plugins, but more importantly, we have the MSF3, which is where everything runs. So I'm going to choose MSF3 and then choose ls for list. Once again, we get a broke down structure. We've got config, data, db, modules, plugins. So let me just clear this back out. And then let's go into modules and we'll list this out. So when I access the modules, I can see auxiliary, encoders, exploits, NOPS, payloads, post. So if I go into exploits and then do ls again, you'll see we have that breakdown. So I'm going to go into C Windows and do ls again. And you'll see now that for Windows specifically, I'm able to find exploits for everything from antivirus to email, to proxy servers, to VPNs, to telnet. And if I wanted to go and see what they were, I could actually go in and pick SMB, for example. And then I get the actual list of the exploits. And these are the Rails files, the .rb files that actually contain the code. So for example, if I choose nano and then choose psexec.rb, this will then load me the source code, and you can see it's just standard code. It tells you what it's supposed to do, and you can trawl through. Most importantly, it gives you the references to the CVE issues, which if there's a website, CVE details, that you can go to, and then contains all of the code. Now, we're not going to make changes to this, so let me just come out of that. But that gives you an idea of how it's kind of structured. We have breakdowns of subdirectories, ultimately to get down to the Rails folders. Now, let me just go back through a couple. And what we'll do is we'll go to root, and then we'll go to the hidden MSF4 directory, and then I'll just clear it so we can see what's in there. So here we have the hidden directory, the .msf4. This is where we have modules, plugins, loot, logs. So if I go into logs and then list that out, we can see that we have the framework log, production log, and then we have session logs. So when we create a session, there's logs that get generated. If we were, as I mentioned before, if we had a connection, there we go. I previously did one where we were doing a downloading keylogger information, and this is where this generated my file. So if I go to nano and just choose that file, you can see that there's a password in there, there's an account in there, and a domain admin group. So whatever was on that machine, I captured that information. And this information, it gets stored in the loot folder. And then of course, if I come back out, I can go into the modules folder, and you'll see there's nothing in those. I can also come back out and then go into plugins and list those out, and those are empty because these are the locations where you can define your own, and they get added into the core Metasploit framework. Now, one of the things that's useful is having the ability to access core documentation for Metasploit. So what we can do is we can browse to the actual Metasploit framework directory. And what I'm able to do now is choose yard and doc. What this will do, this is now going to iterate through all of the Rails files and generate documentation so that we're then able to access that locally on our virtual machine. Okay, so it's now completed. As you can see, there are some errors. Some of the items didn't get documented, and that's purely based on the fact that using Yard, not everything will get documented exactly as it should do. As you can see, some of the errors are about resolving links to information and understanding some of the text in those. But that gives us a pretty good setup of information. Now what we can do is, if we minimize our window here and our MSF console, and we can go into our directories, if we go into our file system and we navigate to that structure that we generated, so user share, and then go down to the Metasploit framework, and if we click in our doc folder, you'll see that everything that was generated is generated here, so all of our pages. You'll see that we can take the index.html, and I can just open with the browser, and the index.html page is obviously the home page or the first page of that documentation, so this should load any second. And there we have our documentation. So we can access this using just opening the HTML pages. But of course, that means I need to know all the links and how to get backwards and forwards. So if we go back to our console application and go back to here where we've got user share Metasploit framework, and if I want to go ahead and use Python, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just clear this and put it up here. Python-m simple HTTP server. What this will do is this then sets up a website that listens on port 8000 inside that directory. So what I'm going to do here is remove all of this. HTTP 127.0.0.1/doc index.html. Oh, forgot the port on the end. Important. And there we have the documentation. So this is generated documentation using Yard for everything that exists inside Metasploit. I'm actually able to click methods list, and if you leave that for a second, it should come back with the search option and allow me to start typing through the method list itself. I can look at the class list and the files list. So this means that I'm actually able to have a localized version of this on my machine. So if I just minimize that, you can see that everything that gets loaded is served up in our little simple HTTP server. So I'm going to close that down and I'll just clear that out. Now, of course, if we go to our actual Metasploit console, that window that we have open, what we can do here is, remember that we learned about using the use command. I can actually do exploit Windows SMB psexec, and that's the location that we looked at in the regular window, which was Metasploit framework, modules, exploit, Windows, SMB, and then psexec existed as one of those options that's there. So we're able to do a one-to-one mapping between the commands that we use in Metasploit and the structure within the Metasploit framework. Now, if we wanted to, we could actually utilize search, and I'm going to choose platform, and what we'll do is we'll look for Windows 7 SP1, and we'll specify the type as exploit. So I'm now telling it to do a search. It's going to build me a cache of all the information, but it's going to look for Windows 7 SP1 as the platform with a type of exploit. Now this can take a few minutes to run, it can take a few seconds, and there we go. This is everything that's Windows 7 related. Now if I wanted to change that and my target wasn't Windows, then what I could do is just change that and say, show me everything that's Ubuntu and is a type of exploit. Same process occurs, it builds the cache and will then return the values related to platform of Ubuntu with a type of exploit. And there we have them returned. Now we can change this. If I go in and remove the platform option, I could simply use type and choose payload. This will do the same thing as the exploit, but go and find me just the payloads that I'm able to look for. So using the search option, I'm able to find exploits, I'm able to find payloads or modules or whatever I'm trying to find. Remember that when we wrote the syntax help search, this allows me to use certain keywords. I've only used type and platform, but I could use something else. I could search by a CVE, an ID number, by going to cvedetails.com, looking for the exploit and finding the one that's there. As you see in the example, it says search CVE 2009 type exploit app client. So this is a quick way to be able to find the types of modules, exploits, payloads, whatever you're looking for, or even auxiliary services that are available.